turn the clock off altogether. During the day, they're usually all right, as long as they're on their feet moving around or talking a lot. But if they have to sit still for very long, to listen or to read or do paperwork, the eyelids start getting kind of heavy. Another thing that often happens as a problem with people with ADHD is they have trouble staying with a task, that they may start it reasonably well, but they have a hard time then keeping up the effort to finish it in a reasonable time. I had a track star from the university, a runner who came into my office one day, and he said, "My mind's a great sprinter, but it's a lousy distance runner." He said, if the task I have to do is something you do in one quick chunk, you just go all out for it and then you're done with it, I'm fine. But if it's something where you can't do it in one quick chunk, it's a longer-term project, you have to keep chipping away at it day after day, that I have more trouble with. And my approach then is either hurry up, slapdash, get the thing done, or why don't we just set this aside and wait until it becomes a little more of an emergency. Everybody has trouble with deadlines sometimes. People with ADD, it's almost like they can't get started until it's becoming an emergency. Another thing that often persons with ADHD have trouble with is writing. I'm not talking about penmanship now. I'm talking about taking ideas and putting them into sentences and paragraphs. Because what people will say is often, I've got a lot of ideas for what I should write for this essay I'm supposed to write or for this term paper, but it just takes me half a forever to be able to get the sentences and paragraphs put together so they make sense. I'm either changing it or it's just disorganized. They have difficulty organizing their thoughts and being able to get the words out in a reasonable way. Another piece of this, it's not part of the official diagnostic criteria for ADHD, but it's certainly something that a lot of people with ADHD are concerned about and complain about, is that many times they have difficulty managing their emotions. I need to give you a few examples because it's not the same for everybody. A salesman I saw one time came in and he said, I was in the diner yesterday, late afternoon, having lunch. I'm in a pretty good mood, sitting there eating my sandwich. The guy in the booth behind me gets his sandwich. He's chewing to it loud. He's going chomp, chomp, chomp. He said there was something about that noise that was driving me nuts. It was as though a computer virus had gotten into my head and just gobbled up all the space, and that's all I could think about was that noise. I'm sitting with my fist clenched, seriously thinking about getting up and smacking this guy in the mouth because he's chewing so obnoxiously loud. He said I didn't do it. I didn't want to get arrested. But if I'd been at home, I would have been yelling at somebody or walked out of the room. He said, that was strange, because after a few minutes, he's still making the same noise, but then it didn't bother me anymore. He said, stuff like that happens to me a lot. Well, there'll be some little frustration. The kind of thing that most people on a scale of frustration would say, that goes from 0 to 10, would say, that's a 0 or a 1, maybe a 2 at the most. For me, he said, it can be like a 7 or an 8 or a 9. He said, sometimes I make a big fuss about it. Other times I don't say anything, but I feel this surge of anger where I feel like punching somebody or breaking something. And then usually it's over with. But he said it's not always that way. He said, day before that, I'm at the office. I'm walking down the hall. A friend of mine who works in the other department's coming around the corner. He's walking toward me, reading some papers as he's walking, and I hadn't seen him for a long time. So as we approached each other, I stopped and said, hey, what's up? How you doing? I figured we'd stop and chat for a minute. He looks up, says hi, puts his head down, keeps right on walking. He said, now most people would blow it off in a minute and figure he's in a hurry. He's got to get to a meeting or something. We'll talk later. He said, not me. And at lunchtime, I got nothing done for the rest of the day. I spent all afternoon thinking to myself, did I do something to annoy him? Or maybe I did something to offend somebody in his department and they're all angry with me. Or maybe I'm just the kind of person nobody likes, so nobody will tell me about it, but I couldn't get it out of my head. Other people, it's not like that. They get an idea in their head of something they want to do or something they want to get or something they want to buy. And all of a sudden that wish takes on such strong urgency that the feeling is, I've got to have it now. And it almost doesn't matter how expensive it is or how inconvenient it's going to be for them or for somebody else, or whether they're using time and money now for this that they know they need for something else tomorrow that's more important. There's just this relentless push, and they will keep that up until they get it or they hit a brick wall. But even if they get it, they're not that happy because usually by then they're off on something else they want. Other people, it's not like that, but they worry a lot. Like a woman talked about how she was driving down the expressway. She's in the left lane. She said, I'm in the left lane. I've got the Jersey barrier to my left, an 18-wheeler truck on my right. We're cruising about 65 miles an hour, and this truck starts to pull over a little bit. He didn't get in my lane. It got me thinking about how big his truck was, how small my car was. And pretty soon I'm thinking to myself, what would happen if he didn't see me? And he pulled over and squished me against the Jersey barrier. And soon, I'm not just thinking about it. I'm running a very vivid movie in my head, imagining exactly what it would look like if that truck came over and smashed into my car, crumpled the car, sharp pieces of metal are sticking into me, I'm bleeding to death, the car's getting dragged along the Jersey barrier, the truck jackknifes, cars and trucks behind us are hitting us repeatedly, there's this massive traffic jam, takes a long time to get the rescue squad out to cut me out of the car. By that time, I've bled to death. They have to call my family and tell them I'm dead, and all this while I'm trying to drive the car 65 miles an hour down the road. She said stuff like that happens to me all the time. There'll be some little thing, and I think, what would happen if this happened? And everything's going along all right, and I'm thinking, what would happen if this happened, or what would happen if that happened? And pretty soon, I'm not just thinking about it, I'm into it. Now, it's not like anybody with ADD has all this stuff, but many will have one or some combination of a couple of them, but what they have in common is that computer virus in the head thing, that the emotion, whether it's the hurt feelings or being annoyed about something, or I've got to have it now, or what would happen if comes and just sort of gobbles up all the space in their head. And it's very difficult for them to put it in perspective, to put it at the back of their mind and get on with what they've got to do. Another thing that's very important for people with ADHD is their working memory. If you ask folks who have ADHD, how's your memory? Often they'll say, I've got the best memory in my family. I can remember stuff nobody else can remember. And they'll give you some example about some movie they saw 10 years ago, and they can tell you every detail of the entire storyline of the movie they saw once 10 years ago. I haven't seen it since. Or somebody else will say, yeah, I went to the Super Bowl 5 years ago. I can still describe for you almost every play they ran during that game. Or somebody else will say, I've got 450 songs in my head. All the music, all the lyrics, all the verses that were popular back in the 70s. But even though they might be very good about remembering some things like that from a long time ago, if you ask them about something that happened just a couple of minutes ago or yesterday, often they can't tell you. The problem with memory with ADHD is not with long-term storage memory, it's with short-term working memory. It's what you depend on when you go into the other room to get something and you're standing there scratching your head and wondering what in the world you came in here for. Or you're working on a project, you go downstairs, get something you need for the project, see something else that's interesting or something else that needs doing. Soon you're up to your elbows in project number 2, having totally forgotten you were in the middle of project number 1 upstairs. It was kind of important to get it done. Students complain they'll be in class. Teacher asks a question. They raise their hand. They've got a good answer for it. Teacher calls on somebody else first. You have to wait while this other kid says her shtick. Then the teacher comes back and says, yeah, what were you going to say? It's like totally clueless. Not only have I forgotten what I was going to say, but what was the question again? Or they'll read something, they understand it perfectly well at the moment that they read it. They read a few more pages, stop for a second, and realize their eyes have gone over every word, and they haven't got the foggiest idea of what they just read. Or, this really bothers them, they'll study for a test the night before the test. They'll go over it and quiz them, they've got it. They go into class the next day thinking they're going to get a good grade on this, and all of a sudden a big chunk of what they knew the night before has evaporated. Can't pull it out of their head when they need it, but then a few hours, a few days later, something jogs their memory, it's all back again. It's not that they didn't have it, it's they couldn't retrieve it when they needed it. Or you're getting ready to go someplace. You think of 5 things you need to take with you. Half an hour later, you're walking out the door, you got one of them. Can't remember the 4 to save your life. It's where you have to hold one thing in your mind while you're doing something else. That's the kind of memory problem that people with ADHD complain about. Another part of this is managing action. You know, it's certainly true that there are some people who, even as adults, are very restless and antsy. It's like they always have to have some part of them in motion. And there are some who are very quick to jump into things, even as adults. And certainly there are many kids who have this sort of thing. But the fact is, many people with ADHD have difficulty slowing down when they need to slow down and speeding up when they need to speed up. Often they have difficulty in monitoring their actions. They'll sometimes speak out of turn and not take into account what the effects are going to be of talking out and saying what they're saying, or they'll jump into something without thinking about what's going to happen if I do this. But all these things I'm talking about, the problems with memory, the problems with difficulty in controlling actions, the problems with regulating emotions, the problems with regulating alertness and sleep, the problems with being able to focus and shift focus when you need these, all these things constitute the range of difficulties that people with ADHD complain about. And remember, all of these are things everybody has trouble with sometimes. It's just that people with ADD have a lot more trouble with them. So the question is not does it ever happen, but how much does it happen? How much does it interfere with the person's being able to do the things they have to do in their daily life? Now, how does it happen? Why is it that some people have this so much more difficulty with these things than other people do? The evidence shows that it seems to be mostly inherited. Out of every 4 people diagnosed with ADHD, one of them has a mom or dad who's got it, whether they know it or not. They never used to diagnose this very well, and even today it gets missed a lot. The other 3, if they don't have a parent who has it, usually they have a grandparent or an uncle or an aunt or